This is Pulse 95.
Pulse 95.
It's the Morning Majlis.
It's the Morning Majlis.
Talking the stories that are shaping headlines, plus those that make you go,
Hi everybody, good morning. Welcome back to the Morning Majlis, the show where we talk about stories shaping the headlines. And today is a big day. It is World Conservation Day. Observed each year on July 28th, the day is celebrated as part of a drive to increase awareness about the best practices to protect the natural resources of our planet. And in line with that, we've got a pretty big interview lined up for us this morning. We've got the CEO of Veolia, Hervé Faujour, and Samantha O'Hara, Veolia's head of digital transformation. And they will join us later on in the program to talk to us all about the environment, about biodiversity, and about Sharjah's most recent projects in helping the environment, how you can get involved and make the most out of our limited sources here in Rania. In line with that as well, Sharjah's had a pretty massive project here.
Oh, it's huge, definitely. Sharjah's BIA, the UAE's leading integrated environmental recycling and waste management company, is working on a first-of-its-kind project here in the region. A novel idea for disused garbage landfill and converting it into a solar power farm. And this would actually produce more than 42 megawatts a year. So we'll talk more closely about it and talk about how it gets done and what does that really mean for our nation and our future.
Yes, of course, and all about sustainability. We're also going to be delving a little bit more on the international headlines, particularly when it comes to key advisor of US President Donald Trump testing positive for coronavirus, the implications for that as well on the Trump administration in terms of what's going to happen. Is it going to convince them a little bit more to push for those stricter measures when it comes to fighting the spread of COVID-19? And we will be delving a lot on the idea of health and well-being, that's because Sharjah Tourism has come up with a new initiative to ensure the well-being and safety of the hospitality staff and the industry. What's happening there? All that will be discussed right here on the Morning Majlis. And if you'd like to join us visually, Pulse 95 Radio YouTube account is up and running and it's live, and that's where you can stream the content and most of our shows live on your smart devices, your laptops, or wherever you like to watch your YouTube, and we'll continue to keep you motivated. And if you'd like to go for the old school traditional way of getting in touch with us, 4215 SMS lines are open, and you can also DM us on Instagram should you wish to do that. Stay tuned to Pulse 95.
Pulse 95.
The Morning Majlis. Talking the stories that are shaping headlines. This is Pulse 95.
This is Pulse 95, and a very good morning on to the Morning Majlis. And Ahmed Dawood, we would like to wish each other a very world happy Nature Conservation Day.
That's right. We're celebrating this day on the program. It is celebrated every year on July 28th, and we aim to increase awareness about the best practices to protect our natural resources. And here to talk to us all about conservation of nature and utilizing our resources to the best capabilities are Veolia's Chief Operating Officer, Hervé Faujour, and Veolia's Head of Digital Transformation and Specialist on Environmental Issues and Biodiversity, Samantha O'Hara. Welcome to the program. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Let's start talking about what exactly World Nature Conservation Day is and why it's important.
So I think that we are all in our day-to-day routine, focusing on logistics and kind of racing against time. And all those special days are acting like a wake-up call. So we need to step back at some stage and become aware again and get out of the routine and look at the global picture. This Nature Conservation Day is actually quite fundamental at the human scale, but is not always perceived as such by individuals. When you're talking about environmental challenge, people see the flooding, they see the heat wave, but they don't see the biodiversity challenge and its impact, it is less striking, it's less obvious than the other climate disorder consequences.
Can you elaborate?
So all these special days are very important, but I believe that the Nature Conservation Day is really needed because this is something that we tend to forget because we don't see immediate consequences in front of our eyes.
Yeah, and can you talk to us about those consequences that we don't see immediately before our eyes? What damage are we doing?
So all those things being cyclic, when you start to break a part of the chain, then the whole cycle gets disturbed. Mm-hmm. So all the wildlife doesn't. Some people just see it as nice, beautiful, but they all have their share in the cycle of nature, and it's really dangerous. One of the easy example is for the bees, for example. If the bees were extinct, then the human race would not be able to live for very long, and people don't realize that. So we each have a share, a brick in the nature cycle, and it's not always visible, but this is really, really key.
Yeah, and since we're celebrating World Nature Conservation Day, what word of advice can you give us on action we can take in our daily routines or activities and habits to try to take our part in preserving our environment?
I think one of the parts is to get the community involved, and we can see how at Veolia we've tried to do that, and why we believe that the best way to do is beyond the mission of the company, but is trying to get all the community involved.
Yeah, and I think this is where the value of small impacts, small differences in your day-to-day routine make a massive impact. That could be anywhere from being more conscientious when you're going for a shower, or using recycled materials, or reusing. It's really key to keep in mind that kind of waste hierarchy. Because even that can then have a direct impact on the conservation and the biodiversity without having litter or things that would fly away out of the landfills or whatever into the environment again. It's a challenging message because we have such an amazing diversity of people in Sharjah and the Emirates, and it means that we have to be very specific with the messages that we pass. But getting into touch with children, having really fun activities is a great way of influencing the behaviour of parents. And we've done some effort there with going into schools and having small education pieces. We're also trying to do it through our employees. So we have an awareness session around sustainable Ramadan, and the same spirit is also true for Eid coming up. Thinking about food waste and encouraging interesting recipes for leftover meals, or even giving sustainable orientated gifts, and kind of really thinking about being responsible consumers and supporting local initiatives like that. We can also partner with NGOs such as WWF or those type of things to really support those initiatives even further.
Both of you touched on this one aspect in your answers. Hervé, you spoke, for instance, about how if certain species going extinct, it would have an adverse effect on us. And you've talked about as well about the sense that people they don't really care too much about it because they don't feel the effect. It's sort of hidden beneath the surface, but it is affecting us adversely. It must be challenging building messages to the public to have that sense of awareness and the sense that to care about what is going on and feel that negative impact. So what would you tell a listener who is apathetic towards all of this, who doesn't really care about sustainable practices, who doesn't see the negative impact? How would you make it clear to them in a concrete fashion?
Yes. No, I think, first of all, I do understand, and we even had to educate our people. We've done some surveys, some biodiversity assessment in a few of our sites, and initially the plant manager was saying, but why do we do that? Why is it related to my own activity? and somehow we had to explain that this is part of our mission, and we are accountable for that. If I take one example, we have desalination plants, and the desalination plant is basically taking water from the sea, leaving the salt behind, and making it potable for all our usage. But this raises a question: is what about the salt that we leave behind? Is it problematic for the environment? And is it more that the factor of concentration which is happening naturally? And it can have a local impact, because locally, when you're returning the concentrated salt into the sea, it could change the biodiversity. So every year we are making some survey around our outfall back to the sea, and we're monitoring what is the impact on these species. Are the species growing or reducing, and what is the intensity of their development? And through these messages, we could see that the employees were getting involved and committed, and were actually proud of what they were doing. And we saw also that it was answering a need of the customers to know that. And if I want to be more practical about what could be the impact, I think that those who have stayed a few years in the Middle East have seen from time to time what we call sometimes red tide or algae bloom on the beach. And then you see that you cannot swim, that the smell is bad. And this is something that can be prevented by having more strict regulation, which is implementing in the Middle East. And a few years ago, I participated in an upgrade of the wastewater plant of Sharjah, where not only were they treating the organic, which is the European standard, but they were going beyond that to treat all the nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus, because when they're discharged to the sea, they will enhance the growth of algae. So we see that beyond the strict compliance to the standard, we see that we have to see the global picture and our global responsibility. And we see that, again, some small action can have a huge impact. And I think this kind of example shows how much dependent we are on our environment. And if we unbalance it, then we can have algae bloom, which will really affect not only the people going to the beach, but the whole industry and even the potable water system.
Well, it's incredible in terms of what Sharjah has been doing as well, in particular, as you rightly mentioned, that the Middle East as a whole is shifting that focus, and there is an increased awareness. Final thoughts on how the community can get involved? What would you like to say as a final message for the importance of World Nature Conservation Day, and then for them to say, yeah, it is my responsibility too. It's not just the authorities or the different entities that are fighting the climate change issue as well.
Yeah, I think I'd expand that even more, actually. If we look at the United Nations 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, that's a worldwide initiative, and biodiversity is up there, including conservation. So it is so important for our region, for Sharjah in particular, but also for the world. And I think we need to be really conscious of how we work, how we operate, thinking of our impact on a daily basis, and see how we can help and support those international, actually, as well as local initiatives. Everything from improving the water cycle, thinking about how we reuse, how we make our desert area and an environment more rich with biodiversity, how to protect that wildlife with areas of mangroves or wetlands, and then educating, as you say, and really bringing out that kind of engaging spirit of the community to get interested and learn about the amazing wildlife we have here, actually, and how it interacts with us on a daily basis, and what value it brings to us. And that's very much something that we need to keep portraying and encouraging more on a daily basis. as we said before, those small differences are going to make the big impacts.
All about that. Well, perfect way to sum it all up. Thank you very much, Samantha and Hervé, for joining us this morning. And we look forward to welcoming you in the studios at some point soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, all the very best. And so happy World Conservation Day for all of our listeners out there. We shall be returning right after some musical entertainment, and then we'll continue celebrating what Sharjah has been doing in terms of a safe city and a safety stamp for all. What does that mean? All that will be discussed right here on the Morning Majlis.
The heart of Sharjah. The heart of Sharjah. Pulse 95.